Hi everybody. This video will be part of the Every Stage in the Cycle series. And the stage that I'm going to be covering in this video is going to be what I like to call the moment of stability. You may already be aware of the cycles through which the disorder goes through as time passes. If you're not already aware of this, as I talk about it, it may bring up an awareness, remembrance, indicative that you already did in fact know. You already had observed in yourself and your life the cyclical pattern going on. The pattern involves, we'll start with a moment of stability, where things are just kind of okay, picking, the skin is slightly under control enough to function your day-to-day life, and that will last for different lengths of time, and then things start to get a little bit shaky, and will lead to somewhat of a slackening off or some other kind of downfall. Sometimes it's a downfall in disguise where we don't catch it because it doesn't feel like a downfall at the time until we are at the bottom. And then we go into the fall, and that's when we either slowly or right away start into the worst of the picking and the skin picking. And that will last for a certain period of time where you kind of get stuck in that cycle, because that's a hard one to get out of. And eventually you either have the self-will or it becomes so bad that you move yourself to start working towards climbing back up again to a moment of stability. Now, this cycle is all part of the disorder. It's almost like it tricks us, it fools us into believing that we have forward motion going on, because you get to that moment of stability and it's almost bearable, and when you pick yourself up, that feels like you're getting somewhere, and you get back to that moment of stability, and what happens? You fall again. So the first thing I want to call out or expose, or whatever you want to call it, is who we are in these moments of stability, and that our behavior and who we are in these moments is actually contributing to the disorder, despite the fact that it feels like, I don't want to take away any credit for the effort and the pushing that it took to get there. That is something we want to hold on to. But once we get there, several things can happen. So what I have noticed in my experience of an example of something that happens in that moment of stability will be that I become super motivated because I got myself to that place. So I'm feeling good about myself. I'm feeling strong. And like I said before, it's not to discount that strength or that feeling proud. It's just how to function with it. Because what I had done in the past is I had taken that proudness, that strength, that self-will, felt good about it, and kind of generated this really kind of high emotional state where I can see the light at the end of the tunnel and everything is going to be okay. And what happens is that I start thinking about all of those things that I had been neglecting to do because I was stuck in a down cycle of the OCD, dermatillomania. I was stuck in a low for so long that you can't function properly in life. You have all these things you want to do, but we sit there and mull about it in our mind while we pick our skin instead of actually acting, instead of actually moving ourselves, instead of actually taking that energetic internal experience, that force within us, and directing it to an activity. We direct it internally, we direct it externally to skin picking. So I will get to a moment of stability, remember all the things that I wanted to do and had put aside, procrastinated, stressed about, and I'll start doing them. And it will be like, oh my God, I can actually complete tasks now. I can function. I'm normal. And what happens is that I go into like an overdrive. I get a lot of stuff done. I usually do quite good work, but the way in which I'm working is unsustainable. If I were to work like that 100% of the time, I would burn out. And that's exactly what happens. And that's, in this example, what leads back to the great fall, the burnout. So, how I've supported myself in these moments where I have that motivation is to constantly check with myself if what I'm doing and how I'm living is sustainable. I have marked what I call a red flag sensation, and that sensation is it's a feeling inside of me when I'm working, and it's almost like a very high vibration, kind of high frequency, like that's the level I'm working at. I'm just pushing, going, 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 pushing, moving, and my whole body almost feels like it's in like this tensed, like ready to go position, just everything tense, moving, going. And I can feel, although it feels good to be getting stuff done, I can feel within myself that my body's starting to experience consequences. I get very stiff muscles down either side of my spinal cord, at the top of my back and into my neck. And it's a general discomfort. And if you're not able to identify that, because in order to identify our internal experiences, we do have to develop somewhat of an awareness. And a lot of people have this awareness already. But if you don't, there are ways to test, to see for yourself if you are in fact in this kind of experience, in this energy, in this state of being that is not sustainable. So let's say you are working on something, anything, a project. It could be that you're even scrolling on Facebook and commenting and participating and whatnot. You're just involved in something. If you want to test if that involvement includes an energy, meaning an internal experience that you're exerting and you're not directing, try to walk away from whatever you're doing. I've done it with Facebook or any social media where I will be involved and something in my world will call my attention, an animal, a child, a task, responsibility, obligation, and I'll see that I will move myself to go towards that thing that I need to do, I need to give my attention to, and it will be like this pull, like this drawing me back to the computer, constantly looking back at the screen to see, if anything came up, or just constantly thinking about it, not being able to let go of it completely. So if you can't just stop a project, maybe make some notes, some reminders, or finish up one last thing, if that's necessary. If you cannot just stop a project and let it go completely, then realize you are in what I'm going to call an energetic state. You are not simply here, present, in the moment, breathing, just with yourself, in your body, with your body. You're up here, thinking, processing, creating thoughts, feelings, and emotions that are just flooding your body and tensing it up, putting it on that high frequency level. High frequency is just a term I'm using in terms of how it feels within me. So today I had a good example of this happening where I did go, I woke up and I went right to work, and I could feel the sensation within me. And it's a tough one because this internal sensation, is something that I have learned over years and years and years. We're talking about way back when I was going to school, studying, having tests, having assignments. getting stressed out because of deadlines and stressed out about presentations and cramming at the last minute. It's that last minute cram for exams that you go into that state as well. It's just a lot of pressure and stress. And then working in stressful environments. I mean, even when I was a waitress, always having to do a million things at once. Everything needed to be done now. Later working in the corporate world, deadlines, pressure, stress, time. So this way of being is something we have programmed into ourselves since forever, since we started having responsibilities and tasks and projects, assignments. So it's one of these things that it takes some time and to undo, and maybe even a little bit more drastic measures to undo. Ideally, this morning when I woke up and I started working and I started going into the energy, I could have just caught myself, taken a breath, and let it go. I tried that. It wasn't working. The feeling was just clinging to me as if it were me, part of me, within me and as me. So what did I end up doing? I got my boots on and I went for a walk outside. There was some beautiful scenery around where I live right now, and I walked through the gardens, I visited the plants, I fully immersed myself in a fascination with nature. And I walked slow and I breathed and took in the scenery until before I knew it, I was feeling like myself again. And in that moment, I got up and walked back into my room to continue my work. So that's a bit more of a drastic measure that I had to take in this moment of stability that I'm actually currently in now. I like to draw out my moments of stability as long as possible. And that's just one of the energies that we can go into in the moment of stability, which is an overdrive motivation as we try to catch up for all the procrastinations and restlessness and busy mind that we had been participating in when we were in a low. So realize that we have to drop this idea of catching up and learn how to get things done while at the same time just being in the moment. Within the understanding that being in the moment is not a natural state for us. It's not something that just happens like a switch. It's something we have to practice. And it's something that can be actually quite enjoyable to practice. Today, if I had continued in that stressed out, tense state, my entire day would be much like the experience of the majority of my life living with dermatillomania, which is feeling like I'm in a prison in my own body, where daily life is like a torture, a prison, because you can't get out of your body, and you're almost like abusing yourself with your mind, pushing yourself too much, and it is unpleasant and unenjoyable. So this process of me learning how to let go of the energy through self-observation, self-awareness, self-investigation, which you can see in my writings if you go check out my blog. That's the stuff I write about and sort out. And to be able to formulate a better idea, a better understanding of what it is that I'm experiencing in these moments. And when I'm able to take whatever steps I need to take, and taking it seriously, taking those steps and letting it go, and then sitting back down and working from that fresh starting point, that internal experience of at ease and relaxed. I mean, sometimes it doesn't last and you have to be constantly catching yourself. It's part of the consequence that we have to walk through, a part of the consequence that we have created for ourselves throughout our lives, living in unawareness of what we were in fact creating as ourselves. So another example of what you can end up going into during moments of stability would be the easing off. And that's when you are feeling pretty stable, as I described the moment before, things are going okay, start to get some hope in there. Just another reminder to hold on to that self-appreciation. And that is something real. But don't be fooled into thinking that it's smooth sailing. Life will throw you another challenge and another curveball. And we have to be vigilant even when things are going well. Being vigilant does not mean going into that stressed state I was talking about just previously. It means constantly catching yourself and relaxing and letting go, or moving or focusing. Anything but going into the energetic experience that causes a tenseness and uncomfortability in the body. So, easing off. Easing off is when things seem easy, and so we go easy on ourselves. Uh, you know, when I'm in these moments of stability and I feel like I have an urge to pick, and in these moments, can actually see quite clearly that moment of decision that happens right before picking session. And that's another thing that we may not be aware of, is that there is always a decision point. And sometimes that decision point has to happen over and over and over. I mean, the decision to go into it is quite easy. It's a one-time thing. Yep, I'm going to pick my skin right now. This is it. The decision not to go into it is oftentimes a decision that has to happen over and over and over. And in these moments of easing up or of stability, when we feel like things are a bit easier and we start to ease up, and we see that, it's around that time, maybe before bed, when you're starting to feel, like, okay, this is my regular time when I pick my skin, I'm going into it, but I'm feeling quite stable, I'm feeling quite good. I think I can actually manage just getting through it tonight. And then you're like, well, maybe I'll just do a little bit, because I know I feel quite stable and I will be able to stop myself. That is one example, a direct example of easing up on the building the self-will to stop picking. Because in these moments, what is crucial is that we identify that decision moment right before we want to go into a picking session. If we can see that decision moment, we can make that decision. I'm not going to do it tonight. I'm actually just going to go right to bed. Or I'm going to go and chat with people. And because when we decide to go into the picking, that means we're going to be closed up in our space. We're going to start creating the doom and gloom feelings that take place when we pick, because we isolate ourselves, we go into self-judgment. So easing off may seem a little bit innocent in the moment, but really it's setting up the entire foundation to fall back into a low that could go right down to rock bottom, that could last for weeks or even months. And this is how crucial this moment of stability is, to set you up to diminish the length of the picking sessions and the damage done in your moments of lowness, where it is a bit more difficult to make this decision of, redirecting, stopping, choosing not to go into it. These moments of stability are crucial for creating your foundation of strength, power, standing, self-will, self-motivation, and self-directive principle. In these moments of stability, I like to call them creation periods, because they're moments where we do have a little motivation, self-directive principle. And so we can create foundations for ourselves. So in these moments of stability, as I said about the going into stress and now the easing off, what is the key factor here? What is the solution for both of these examples of things that happen to us in this moment? The key is balance. Balancing yourself in a way where you can work and you can rest and you can take care of everything you need to take care of in your life in such a way that is sustainable. So for me today, it meant going on a walk. Now, I didn't feel like I had time for a walk. I felt like I had work to do. And, when I go to create that balance in my life where I'm in the extreme work mode, I tend to really resist taking breaks and taking rests and taking care of myself because I just want to get everything done. So this is how we create a balance, is that we have to use common sense because our internal judge is off kilter. You can't necessarily trust it in some moments. You have to use common sense and looking. So, I can just ask myself, is this sustainable? Just ask yourself about the easing off. Is it you can commonsensically see that easing off in those moments are going to create a scenario where you are right back into the picking. And also commonsensically see that if you have that strength in these moments, to use it, apply it. Start creating a life for yourself that is one that you want to see for yourself. You want to see yourself in that life, a life that you want to live. Some things that I have for years now been creating in my life in these moments of stability has been healthy eating habits, healthy exercising habits. I started yoga. I started using a power plate. I started putting more walking time into my day. Also breathing time. I'll set a timer for 5 minutes and I'll just breathe and get myself back in tune with my body. I also started making schedules for myself, marking down everything that I need to do and putting into a time frame so that when I'm not as stable, I have this structure, that I can walk into. And it's when you're already in a position where you're feeling unmotivated, depressed, low, gloomy, it's tough enough to motivate yourself just to do the physical act. Now, if you have to do the physical act as well as figure out when I can do it, what I have to do, when do I have time for this, it's adding a lot more baggage to simply moving. So if you can, when you're in a moment of stability, set your life up in a way that is sustainable, creating a foundation that you can walk into when you are in a low. So that when you are in that low, it will be easier for you to come out of it, thus decreasing the amount of time you spend there. All right, so moment of stability, watch out for overexertion, watch out for its polarity opposite of easing off, and use that time to create a structure and a foundation for yourself to walk into in any moment, specifically the lows. Lastly, don't be fooled by the perception that a moment of stability is forward motion if you know that you're just going to go back into the cycles again. And you can tell the difference between the deception and actual real growth, actual real building in indicators in your environment. So if you see that you are actually getting more things done and feeling better about yourself, and this stuff is starting to become longer term, it's spreading out over weeks, months, years, where you see, I've created this, I've started a new hobby, I've developed a skill. These types of things are slow in the making, but they are undeniably there when they're there. So using these moments of stability for actual real self-creation rather than, a calm in the storm, like being in the eye of the tornado where, don't be deceived that the tornado's gone just because the winds have died down and you're having a moment of peace. You have to actually learn how to determine between the two. Okay? So I do have more to say on moments of stability. I only gave 2 examples of things that can happen in these moments, um, self-sabotage mechanisms that can happen in these moments. And there are more, but we'll leave it at that for now. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you.